uh, uh, what fethu the fellas much to the boys, ladies mantombazana zibanyana ngisho nina bo baby girl poo 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 poo. Welcome to my take, and this is your war mail. Today, guys, I just want to take a moment to shed light in this area called Umjolo, which has got so much going on, so much chaos, to a point where it's actually even called a pandemic nowadays. So I just wanted to take a moment just to, rectify certain matters that I would like to believe are the reason why this whole thing is going down to shit. Because I like to believe a lot of people are not really aware of what they're doing. People are just rolling through in, rolling through out, and they're not even aware of the circumstances or the situations that are surround them, or whatever is even going on at that point in time, for them to actually, reflect. The reason why this whole thing is becoming a pandemic is because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So today, umele uzile la uzodalula lonke udaba. Yimina lo ozokhipha le Gibhithe akubeke Israel. So right away, all I want to say, guys, is that I will not be able to go through all the problems that ever beset Mjolo, but I'll pick out some relevant ones that I would like to believe are the ones that are actually really affecting people out there, and the ones that I know, or the ones that I've been exposed to, or the ones that I have seen happen. So this is just me relating these problems in context of my experiences and the people that surround me. So it's actually built on real life stories. Ain't that just interesting? So at the end of this video, I just want you to now ukwazi ukuhlala phansi nje ukuthi ubheke emuva, ukwazi nje nawe ukuthi ucubungule uhlaziye ukuthi kahle kahle, where did I go wrong? What was happening? What could have possibly been happening? Because sometimes I just believe we go through situations and we don't fully understand what's really rolling out, or what's really happening, or what happened. So I may not be able to relate to your love life fully, kodwa ke I'm sure ngizothinta la nala la nala. Phela iqiniso niyakwazi yabo. So first and foremost, what I'm going to start with, I want to talk about the effects of the social media, guys. The social media is as much as it is a tool and whatever. I would like to believe that it is working to our detriment at this point in time in life, because at this point it's exposing people to a lot of options. Like, people are so exposed to so much nowadays. Ayisafana le yakudala. Yabona le yakudala ukuthi a boy meets girl and they're in a village, and there's probably like a certain number of girls in that village, and and there's a certain number of boys in that village, and people are just exposed to those people. So uyakwazi ukuthi uma ungashadanga intombi yalapho, you can never really imagine yourself meeting someone else out there. So right now, anyone can just access anyone from anywhere. People are just open to dating anyway. Ngithi ngihlelelana umuntu waseGauteng uyangitexta, kuphi uyangitexta, kunoma DM, kunani, that kind of thing. People are just shooting their shot, and they've got so much access to each other. There's dating sites. So that has driven a lot of should I say miscontentment or discontentment? Is it miscontentment or discontentment? Oh, I think it's discontentment. That sounds correct. So in that aspect, they've got so many options, to a point where it's even affecting marriages. And probably the reason why he wasn't checking out ads on the Explorer page on Instagram, because okwamanje umuntu ushadile mara uyangena Instagram ubuka la Instagram model and ama expectations athi uyabheka unkosikazi wakhe wenthathisi usekhulu phela useyenye into nje akusabukeki. But anyway, guys, this is the problem that is beset with us. So I like to believe that it has also affected our perspective in terms of expectations. People have got so much high expectations. Some of them are not even realistic right now. They've got this idea of what relationships are supposed to be. Guys have got this idea of what a girl is supposed to be like, and everyone's up there, and it makes it so hard for people to actually engage and treat each other in the manner in which they're supposed to treat each other. And lama high expectations assesses people are failing to appreciate the good that is being given to them. Uthola ukuthi wonke umuntu amantombazane amaningi wonke afuna ukujola lesigwili. You know, I think people who can actually relate to this a lot are the guys in the 20-something gang. You're right. There's so much pressure here. There's so much pressure because angeke phela amantombazane afuna ukuphila ezinye impilo esingazazi nathi ubona ukuthi hayi bokele umthwalo ongaka yini lento siqala ukungisinda and nalapho wenza lokho wena okhona ukwenza ngaleso sikhathi yena ufuna ukuhamba like there's this Dubai thing, all this inflated, like, and then you think yourself, in which world is a 20-year-old guy supposed to, a guy in his 20s supposed to afford taking a girl to holidays in Dubai, or holidays 4 or 5 times a year? And then you think to yourself, this is literally unrealistic. But yeah, what can I say? This is social media. And then it's a little too hard. The beauty standards, not just Tesati, we're failing to appreciate the beauty that we have in front of us every day, because we have this version of what a girl is supposed to look like nowadays. Because yabazi nabo offer the nipple, bahleli bayaposta lapho abo body positivity and stuff. So it's affecting a lot of things. So, and in the way that we engage with each other, so it's making it quite a hard thing for us to find contentment in our relationships. Meeting bigger, I always feel like I can do better. Ugirl nayo uhleli lana la ukhona nje for the meantime ukuthi kwamanje izohlala nomali uzingoba nje kuyasebenza, but otherwise ufuna isigwili sakhe that will take it to Dubai and the yacht and the whatever and the thong. We all know that. Another reason why I also believe that we're failing to make this mjolo work is because we're failing to understand each other as men and women. Women have their perception of what men are supposed to be, and men have got the perception of what women are supposed to be. And to top that, there are also societies and movements that also believe that men and women are the same. So right now, as some things are going the way they are, there's like a bit of too much information flowing and contradicting and going left and going right and going. So it's got people on different levels of understanding, and this has sparked a point where people just don't understand each other fully. So I think maybe we need to take time just to redirect and understand each other as men and women, because the true honest, in all honesty, or should I say in all truth, we are different. We're all different in the manner that we handle situations, in the manner that we do things, in the manner that we engage in stuff. It is all different. You put a woman in a certain situation, she will react differently. You put a man in the same situation, you put a woman in, he will react differently. And that shows you a yin and a yang, in which we're supposed to work together. So that whole thing is not meant to draw us apart. But the fact that people do not fully understand each other is a problem. Right now, I think women think men are complicated, but in all honesty, men are not as complicated as women think men are. And to be honest, I think men are very simple. And if they always thought or kept it that way, it wouldn't be as complicated. You know what I mean? It's either this or that, to be honest. It's quite on the surface. Ihlule ngisho nalapho uma umuntu ethi ufuna ibirthday, une-birthday, uze umuntu wesifazane embuza ukuthi hayi baby, kathi nge-birthday yakho ufuna ngikwenzeleni? Uze umuntu ethi hayi mina ngicela ungiphekele ipapa ungifake nenyama eningi. Akaqamanga. The problem is, most women would think inyama nepapa kuphela, ipapa nenyama nje kuphela yiyona into ezomjabulisa. Kanti ukhuluma kuyaqeda umuntu wabantu nje injalo nje. But then just because women are people who are very detailed and they like uba hey ibirthday and uthola umuntu eseze lokho okwedlule. But then that's just women being women. There's nothing wrong with that. But then I think maybe some women don't understand how simple a man is. I think men are just simple people in general. In which I'm sure some people will not agree. But then again, on our end as gents, I feel like, I think on our end as gents, I think our problem is we do not understand the extent to which women are emotional beings. You know, sometimes we find ourselves in situations where we're calling women crazy because we don't fully understand how emotional a woman can be. Because I think I've also encountered some experiences where someone has told me they're scared or they're not feeling safe, and I'm thinking to myself, what? Ukhuluma ngani lo muntu? And because in that area or whatever, it's quite a very safe area. Kodwa-ke, sometimes it's not even about it making sense. You know what I mean? Sometimes women just feel things and it be like that. So the only thing you can do in that space is just embrace whatever she's going through at that point in time, which sometimes just doesn't make sense, but you just have to. Yabo? So as in out now, mele understand ukuthi amantombazana nawo lokwenza ezinye izinto sometimes esingazi-understand, but nawe kumele, yabo, that is why babizwa ngey'ngane, you know, not ukuthi I'm just trying to say that they're not mature or anything, but I think there's logic to them being called ingane. You know, sometimes when you play with a kid and a kid just tries and comes and makes up something, or they're scared of something than they're supposed to be, you just try and, you know. So with a woman, you have those moments, not all the time, but you have those moments where you just gotta play along. Like, she goes like, she's just embrace that feeling or whatever. Don't try to discuss it. Don't try to dismiss it. Don't try to. She just wants you to listen sometimes. Sometimes she just wants you to listen. Don't try and understand it. Don't try and get into conversations. Don't try and, you're going, just embrace it and just be there. Now was yabona lento nje nalapho inga-understandeki khona vele uthi understand kodwa manje I think I just need to just make her feel safe. It's just a feeling. But again, if it's something that is quite a problem, maybe don't address it at that point. So sometimes I feel like sometimes I think we don't actually get to a point where we take time to actually just understand that women they go through a lot of emotions sometimes, and at a certain point in time, it's not a point where you just be confrontational about it or try and discuss. Just give it time and then talk about it later, just to say, okay, I didn't understand what was going on there, and nakhona mayesehlisile umoya, or maybe you are no longer in that scenario, or maybe 2 or 3 days after that. That way, maybe you can highlight, okay, that looked a little absurd, or maybe that was wrong, or you know what I mean? Because they're not quite good at taking criticism at the same time. You know what I mean? They just get defensive. So, and at this point, I would like to just say, you know what? Let's just encourage each other to just practice patience when it comes to women. They're very delicate people. They go through a lot. But let's just be patient sometimes. I think when you call them ingane, there's this little part of you now njengomjida nje ebuyibe ingathi bamelonyana yabona nawe ubuza ukuthi hayi babona lento uhandle with care. Handle with care. You know, women want to be protected, and it is our duty as men to care for them. Siyanthanda ke mantombazane, manilalele in bed. And then this one that I'm about to start, and I mean, izozuphatha kahle abanye abantu, because you ngisaba ngisho nokuyiqala yile eyalabo abo I will submit when he proves to me he's a man, or yo lawo mantombazane ngikhuluma nje kuyimanje abanye bazahoduza umshado awuvumi. Kunzima. I know doesn't sound good, or people will feel like I'm gaslighting other people or whatever, but it is also a factor that is playing in the dating field that is not working out. Men do not like aggressive women, and aggressive women are in I don't know, it's like they were batch produced, especially in our generation. There's so many aggressive women, so many women who are not agreeable. Abantu amakhanda aqinile nje ukuthi umuntu wakhona, it's so hard to be with them. Umuntu wakhona liphila lingangisana man, wena awukhona ngisho no-heavy conversation. And the kind of woman who always feels the need to be right, that kind of woman, uyabo lo mfazi ongakhona isimelo kind and ngulone dla yabona umfazi wakhona uthi nawe uyayibuza ukuthi no kathi umfazi wabanjani ethi wavele wabanje. And the sad part is that most of them are not aware that this is what is happening, because or them having those masculine traits makes it hard for them to welcome and embrace men into their lives. Like bahluleka ukuphatha amadoda. Yazi kunale nto nje that I always say ukuthi the difference between the generations before and the generations now in regards to women is that women back in the day were taught how to handle men. So bengabe yebo bebengafundile, yebo kodwa babekwazi ukuphatha indoda. Okay, laba bamanje they don't even have a place for men. Yilaba aba-preacher I don't need a man. The I don't need a man movement is also working to the detriment of the whole dating society, because women are not creating a conducive environment for them to welcome and embrace and be able to keep a man in their life. Yebo niyakhona ukuba-attractor, yebo niyabakhona ukuza niyabaheha. They'll have sex with you. It's not like ukuthi maybe uphofolo, maybe no, you're sexy, you're attractive, mara. So I would really encourage that most women nowadays preach the message of being in touch with their feminine side. Men love kind, soft, loving women. Like ufele umfazi wakho abe yilento man. Siputubutu uyalizwa nalo siputubutu. Uma ukhuluma ngomuntu wakho ukhulume ngalento nje, yazi a bowl of happiness, ugushi wakho ukuthi yabona that is my soft space. Yabona uma ngikhuluma ngomuntu wami ngikhuluma ngalento. Yazi into yami nje yabo eligugu. Hayi labo Van Damme, hayi niye uziphathisa Van Damme baby girl, yasimoshela la ngaphandle, nenza kube nzima, abanye sibashiya sibathanda ngoba vele lento akusebenzeki nomfazi ohlala njalo esebusweni bendoda. And another reason that umjolo is not working is, it's quite sad, but it's the inability of people to be honest with themselves when something is not working from the get-go. Because I think we have all been, let me not generalize, maybe it's my situation, we've all been in relationships that we knew from the get-go we're not going to work. Like, you decide to dismiss the red flags, you decide to overlook stuff, and you just put yourself in situations that will work to your detriment. And all of these things, I think they're also triggered by society in general, the pressure yoba okusalayo nosazohlukana. And I have to say that as a society, we are guilty of it. We're always so cynical about relationships when people have relationships. So some people feel the need to prove ukuba lento kwamele isebenze, umuntu abambele lento enebuhlungu and ayifake into engasebenzi for the longest time and hurting themselves and putting themselves in a comfortable. So I feel like I think it's always good for a person to be honest with themselves from the get-go and just no matter how much you like someone, no matter how you're bouncing off each other, no matter mawubona nje ikhona intuition yasebenza, iba khona nje lento ethi ikhona nje into engekho right ngalo ntombazana, or ladies ikhona nje into nawe ubibona ukuthi ikhona something is not adding up ngalo mjita, and I think we're not going to work, but you just choose to just overlook it, all because of all these reasons. And abanye, they're in the wrong relationships all because they feel they deserve to be married, especially ladies. I feel like this one happens a lot with ladies. They feel that they deserve to be married. Abanye, they're in these relationships because they just won't let that other girl win. Siyazazi isigwabos masithi i-pandemic, sisho ukuthi i-pandemic, thola ukuthi umuntu uhleli nendoda all because akafuni le ntombazana le emjabulisayo, or angazi umakhwapheni wayo, or ukuthi ibuye izongena emzini wakhe. And that's the reason why they're actually in that ukuthi I will not let her win. And some iyona lento ukuthi abantu bazothi ngihlulekile, ngihlulwa umshado, or ngihlulwa i-relationship, or but then when you're in the wrong relationship, it's all to your detriment. And yiko ngithi that's where it all sparks to be a pandemic. So I think we need to normalize identifying what the red flags are early and making sure that we walk away, because there's nothing wrong with keeping your integrity and just saying yazini lesicathulo ngathi asizongena kulolu nyawo ngoba sizokhipha amakhozi uvela uyiphumele nje, because you know what I mean. So it's always about you. Protect your energy, protect your peace, make the best decisions of yourself for yourself. Don't self-sabotage. So some things we need to take accountability. We put those things on us, on ourselves. We put ourselves through stuff based on shit that we're not supposed to even be taking part in. So let's love ourselves enough to respect ourselves, to remove ourselves from unhealthy situations. I hope it makes sense. I hope it makes sense. And another one relates to the people we talk to when we're in relationships, guys. Leona, nami ngije personally, I think isinginqela ama-relationship phansi aphela onke nje kuvele kungqongqe abangane advisors. And the sad part is that it's unhealed people getting advice from unhealed people. You know how when people are in a relationship, let's just say I'm in a relationship with Mang Mang, and then we have our own problems, and then Mang Mang goes and consults from her friends. And what people don't understand is when she's consulting from her friends, everyone has a skewed perspective when it comes to what our relationship is or the kind of person I am. They are judging me based on what Mang Mang that I'm dating has told them. And it's actually skewed in such a way that libone bahlomufa advice based on their own experiences and what they would probably have encountered or gone through at some point, and reflecting it on our situation. So at that point in time, relationship yaka is being scrutinized based on a standard that never happened. Or uthole ukuthi right now ngizothi nginentombazana yami bese ngithi maybe one day or one afternoon I don't call her in the evening and then I go to bed. Bese katshela ichomi yakhe ukuthi ayazimela usi akangifoneli makushonilanga what. And then that friend will be like, yo, chomi, kiyabatsiba ba, you know, these kind of boys, whatever, lahla lo doti, kathi hayi lutho, umele ukhathele nje kuphela. Ukhathele, ayikho enye into nje ehlangene lapho. And then yena she listened, and amantombazana ayalalelana shema, ayalalelana. Uthola usile izimpo ongazi uzuhlala nazo ngoba nje batshela udoti nje, yabo. So I think we need to be careful when we're consulting with our friends and know that whatever advice we get from our friends, sometimes it's not always right. Sometimes it has a form of bias to it. And sometimes you might just ask for advice from a friend and they're just going through something at that point in time. So they're not bound to give you positive advice. Or uthole ukuthi umngane wakho naye ushayekile, naye unenkinga zakhe, umjola wamhambeli kahle. Avela ukutshela ukuthi umjola awubereki. Uvele ubone wakho nawe vele nje ungene nje emnyameni, ayikho into ezosema nawe ulimali. Or you're just asking for advice from a person who's just going through stuff and hasn't healed and is also broken. So I think people need to be very mindful of the advice that they get from friends and all these other whatever advisors that they get from, because it has a form of bias. But people will never really know me like how I know you. That's why I always say, every time when a girl goes back to her boyfriend after maybe the boyfriend did her bad or whatever, when she says "Alimuti," like the way I do, there's an extent of reality, or there's an element of truth in it, in the sense that she came to you and she's only been telling you bad things about that guy, but maybe sometimes when the days are good, she doesn't come to you guys and she knows what, you know what I mean? So that's why I'm saying, let's be careful and let's be mindful of other people and the people that give us advice in terms of dating. And there's a lot of cynicism, like I said, going on around. So you can't just always expect to go out there and just say, can you kindly give me relationship, and expect a person to be logical and quite about your situation. But based on whatever, and there's bound to be some biases. So I'm not saying don't listen to your friends. I'm just saying just be aware of what could be going on. That is why the reasons why Mjolo is not happening or is not going well, or so these are just factors that we as people tend to overlook, but are affecting and working against that. But like I said, I also have relationships that have gone to shit because of friends that have abantu bahleli bephawula nje endabeni zabantu aphume. And furthermore to this whole unhealed conspiracy of unhealed people taking advice from unhealed people, sinalinkinga futhi of unhealed people going into relationships with unhealed people. to a point where we've got all these statements going on around, like, no one's perfect, sonke sinazo iy'nkinga, and people validating each other's issues and not taking time to heal. And I have to say this, guys, healing is quite a lot of work. And to be honest, a lot of people are afraid to heal. Healing is a scary process. Telling someone to face their fears, telling someone to go through a point or a process of looking back to where they were damaged and fixing and putting in the work to get themselves to a point where they're right. I know healing, let's explain more fun. There's too many conspiracies here on these socials. Everyone thinks they understand healing. But the time heals everything. Umuntu acabanga ukuthi uzohlala lana ndwazi 2 months ayovuke right. Ayisebenzi kanjalo. Ayisebenzi kanjalo healing. And the sad part is that thina njengabantu abamnyama we don't really normalize into efana no therapy, that, but then I guess angithi uyazi ukuthi le yona ekhuluma chankura asinalo ke le isenti elikazuka ngathi liyashoda. So mawutshela umuntu ukuthi ngisazoya ku-therapy, I'm going to pay 1.5 or 2.5 for a session, it doesn't make sense. But I would like to believe that it is always good to be aware that and acknowledge that at certain points in time you got hurt and you have a duty to work through your problems and get them fixed. It's just that I can't recommend any people who've got programs that help people heal or whatever, go through healing processes that are cheap or that I can recommend to people that will probably want to go through stuff. But I feel like it's always, I think that it's always advisable that a person goes through a healing process for whatever hurt or pain they have gone through, because we are experiencing a lot of damage, people adding on damage and more damage and more damage to another. And to be honest, after you've gone through a healing process, there comes a point in time in your life where you cannot tolerate unhealed people. To be honest, if you have really gone through healing, if you have once been fat and then you lose all your weight and then you get to a point where you are at your fittest, awumanage vele uvuke nje usidla ukudla nje okanjani. Mina, I for one personally, I've gone through it. I was a fat kid and no one believes me. I've done fat, I've done skinny fat, I've done chubby, I've been through it all. But now I'm a slim nigga. And paranoia, I don't know whether to call it issues or whatever, but I don't want to see myself fall into that hole. So at a point in time, you can't tolerate a person who is unhealed when you have gone through a healing. It's like when you've like I've given an example of fitness. When now you're in a point where you are fit and you have your body in check. When someone tells you losing weight or getting in your best shape is not possible, you look at them differently. You're like, dude or babe, I don't think you are really, really, really passionate about this whole thing, or you're really taking this whole process of you putting yourself in the best shape to a point where you want to put in the work. But if you really wanted to put in the work and get it right, you would, because you have also done the hard work and you have gone through. So it's hard to tolerate broken people. We have all been through stuff. We have all been broken. As Pumangetini Nizolo, Dallas Gulugas, Shagas, Huzas, Siwas, Bogas. Yeah, but at the end of the day, Umuntu, you have to wake up and acknowledge your problems. So let us disassociate from this thing of always going into broken relationships with broken people. But then again, sometimes broken people are not even aware that they're broken. And you know what they say, you attract what you are. So if broken attracts broken and broken comes together, and then they break and then they break and then they keep breaking each other. So toxic relationships doesn't work. Back in the streets, more toxic people, more screams, Mjoloki pandemic, and the thing goes on and on and on. So I encourage people to actually take time and invest time. And just take time and get therapy for your healing, because it might just be the reason why you are not going through umjolo the best way, or you're not having your best experiences in experiencing umjolo fully, because unama issues, or you've got pain, or you're unable to do certain things. You're unable because of that. So I think there's a lot of healing to be done. There's a lot of awareness. There's a lot of introspection. There's a lot of processes. And we've all gone through a lot, but people are not really taking cognizance of all these things. And lastly, about the healing side of things, guys, if you're a person and you know you are in your best emotional state or you're in your best space mindset wise, can we stop getting into relationship with people that are broken and stop being enablers of these people? Like the fact that you get into a relationship nomuntu onenkinga and you're willing to understand them makes you a person who does not give them an incentive to go out there and get help, the help that they need. People were telling us they are unable to do this because this, they are unable to do this because this. Because don't confront me because this. So, and I'm not talking about something doing things that are out of them. I'm talking about normal things that normal people do. Because they are holding on to a trauma, or you know what I mean. So let's normalize just disassociating. I, for one, I'm a victim of that. I don't know, like I think maybe at some point in time I was also broken and maybe I was attracting them that's broken, but I've been in a relationship with someone. Guys, don't go there. Don't do it. Don't do it. You will die. I I I look back at such experience and I'm thinking to myself, why did I not love myself enough? Then I realized, you know what? Something was broken in me. Why was I even tolerating this? Why? Like, it didn't make sense. So let's normalize getting into the culture of just saying, yazini, wena ukuzola, ngiyakuthanda, the chemistry is there, the connection is there. Kodwa ngicabanga ukuthi mhlambe kuzomela usebenze on 1, 2, 3, or maybe you need help on certain things. And okwamanje, I can support you as a friend or whatever while you go through the process. But then we also need to understand that some people will never heal. It's not everyone understands. It doesn't always play out. Okay, we have the comment. Some people will never heal. Some people are just broken, and it is what it is, guys. You can't save anyone. So yeah, but all I'm just saying is, stay away. And another thing that is playing a huge factor in relationships not working is fake people. Hayi niya-acta bafethu. Hayi la ngaphandle aniyayidlala igeji. Yazi umuntu abe yile nto nje kathi hey, it's a facade. They're putting up an act. And this thing is affecting a relationship in the sense that fine, you can act, you can keep up an act for a while. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5, 6. Kuthi sekuthe kwathi gwiqiqi sesijika izinto siyakushintshela umuntu. And this all stems from the fact that someone wasn't genuine or someone wasn't being who they are from the get-go. And if there's one thing about people who are fake, guys, they can only put it up for so long. It's not even ukuthi kumbe uzoqabela amanga akubhaqe. They're just bound to get out of it. U-actor kuyakhathalisa, ngisho noma ubani uzophuma, uzozi-expose at some point. And at that point in time, imagine unomuntu, we are actor, they're putting up a facade, they bring this person, and you fall in love with that person. That person they're pretending to be, that person they're acting, or that person they believe you will like. The chemistry gets on, the compatibility gets on, and now uyangena ugxumizixhaso again. Kube njalo. A couple of months down the line, things stop working because they've gotten tired of being that person. And now the person you fell in love with is no longer in the picture. You look for them in them, you look for that person in them, you don't find it. Usewulomunye umuntu ongamazi, yilapho kuqala khona into zokuthi ubani sasijola kanti wavuke ngitshintshela ngisamazi, indlela akhuluma nami ngakhona angikaze ngibona, indlela angidinwe ngakhona bengingazi ukuthi iqala lapho. But I encourage people to always stay genuine, guys. Keep it 100. Keep it 100. Be yourself all the time. Be genuine. Go out there and be yourself. And those who like you will like you. those who don't like you will not like you. Akunabantu abawu-5 emhlabeni, baningi aba bantu. Awukwazi ungamthola umuntu okuthandayo, awukwazi ukuthola umuntu ozokufuna. Uyobe umuntu onjani? Eqonda. Ngisho ngithi ngabe sachaza ngiya phambili, I'll end up offending other people. Phela YouTube. And so yeah, so there are also all these things that are going factored into space. And the other thing is, I think people don't have set criteria as to which actually set criteria as to how they select a proper partner. People get caught up in the hype. Right now, I just met someone, and they give you a little bit of a tingle. You know what I mean? Like there's a spark, butterflies. And you just jump into it. Kumnandi, ngazo zonke, mantombazane, amazipho, konke. But no one is thinking about the whole idea of things like compatibility, the connection, and the chemistry. Into ehlukahlukene lezo. Ha, yimina lo. Ngizanezinoju. Ziyanje. And as much as sometimes you might find someone who's compatible, you should always be open to the fact that as much as you may be compatible with someone, they might just not be the one for you, despite the fact that you get along or you like the same things, or when there's no connection. Abantu asibeke bayifeel connection, they know what I'm talking about. Do you know a connection? Like uma uvela uxhume nomuntu nje uyazi ukuthi we are compatible, but sine connection. There's compatibility, and then there's a connection, and then there's chemistry. Compatibility is sikhuluma ngalokuthi yeah, we like the same thing, and then the chemistry is that we have a way of gelling and rolling nje. Like, you know how a team plays, like every team has its own chemistry. You know what I mean? That's chemistry. You know what I mean? They have a sync, they have a language, they have emotion they move with, like chemistry. So sometimes chemistry may be misunderstood for connection, but a connection. For me, it goes, but it's not everything. It's not like it's all zeroed on connection, but all those are factors that come in. So I think people tend to mix up izinto there, and we end up being in relationship for the wrong reasons. Kodwa ke, I value connection the most, because connection means I can be with that person. I can go for months without even seeing someone, and the moment I see them, we talk like we just sinanendlela yokuxhuma. It even happens with friendships. Like connection, it has got what can I call it? It's like a spirit recognizes its match. You know what I mean? Like umoya wakho nje unalento nje inalibu soulmate nyana ukuthi unalento ukuthi when you meet that person, your spirit just recognizes that person and it just goes, you know what I mean? Just like our friends. Some friends have been our friends forever, and we can go for months without talking, and when we it goes, even like it's rare. It's rare. So we don't just connect every day. So that's why I told you, we are in relationships. We don't create people the same. That's why I was telling you, we treat people differently in each and every relationship, and we all know that. It's not a good woman, we're trying to be dodgy or something. So people just connect on different levels. Some people will connect, some people will not connect. Maybe we're just rolling with compatibility. Some, it's just chemistry. But some, when you're fortunate, it's just everything, which is quite rare. Because the problem that we were facing with this whole corona thing, when people got locked up with their partners. Hey, divorce. So kuyabonakala manje ukuthi people actually have distractions. Like they can only tolerate their partners. They like the same thing, or maybe they have a chemistry, but they don't have a connection. They can't stand each other. So, guys, also be aware of these relationships where you cannot be with your partner without a distraction. Like, half the time, every time when you're with your partner, it's either it's Netflix and chill, or you're doing something, or you're playing a game, or outside that, there is nothing. There is nothing, literally doom and gloom. So, this is where I'm saying some couples got tested. And to think that people actually went to a point of getting married and they were not even, you know what I mean? Now they realize, as in, after being put in one place, and they realize they don't have anything to talk about. They can't. But when we're talking about connection, we're talking about that. I don't know if you think I'm being unrealistic. It's that it doesn't happen every day. And I'm sure if we were to carry out a survey, people will probably say I met a connection maybe once upon a time, or bani, or whatever. But yeah, it happens. But I think, yeah, let me not offer them. And just to add on, guys, another reason is because Tina, as people, we don't understand what works for us. Sesiyajona nje kuphela, ubani muhle, ujole naye. And at the end of the day, this thing comes to our detriment every day. And as people, I think we need to start normalizing, establishing what is important to us and what we look for in a partner, not just dating. So I think it's time we actually start encouraging a culture of dating with intent, strict intent to say it. Like, kwamele ukuthi uma ungena ey'ntweni ubuwazi ukuthi into engiyifunayo la ngifuna lokhu nalokhu nalokhu. You know what I mean? And if you do not find those things in that certain person, you stop wasting their time. You move on and go and find a person. That way we don't get to waste each other's time, and we end up, if we don't establish this prior before we get into it, we end up being in all these meaningless relationships that get us hurt over stupid things. That's why they always say, if you move around blindly like this, or maybe if you move around without intent, you will end up not making it to wherever you're going. Because a man who just not focus and align himself with things that align with his purpose might just end up driving into the future with the wrong person. And abangak, things will not play out just like how you wanted them to play out. So I think it's important for us to establish what our future should look like, what we want in a partner, and go and look for it. Date with intent. Umuntu angakutshela ukuthi kukanje kukanje kanje and it doesn't align with you, it's okay. There's 7 billion on this planet. You'll find another one. I'm not saying be dismissive. I'm not saying be petty. I'm just saying know what works for you, establish what you're looking for, and date with strict intent. And make sure the person you're with matches and aligns with what your future is meant to look like. So you have to be very intentional about the people you date. Ukwazi ukuthi if I want a person like this, kube yilo. Ungayitholi usuyiqala nabantu usushade nomuntu or usuyifake nomuntu sekakutshela ukuthi yena lokho akusebenzi. Kanti iyona into ebalekile kuwena, but nawe awuzange uyibeke yacaca futhi from the get go. Nawe futhi awuzange uyibonise ukubaluleka. Nawe futhi awuzange uyicabange nje ukuthi uyibeke uyibonise ukubaluleka, because you were just blindly dating. And then now you're just you're now understanding this through experiences, but you're already dug in deep into the whole mess. So you're unhappy, or you find yourself in a situation where you're unhappy, but because you failed to execute the whole thing properly from the get-go. Okay, and the next one right now relates to how people communicate with each other in a relationship. This one, people tend to overlook people, but it plays a very heavy effect, especially for me personally. I really find it sad that people do not know the difference between a disagreement and an argument. You know, arguments, I just always think they are an excuse for people to what can I say? An argument is an excuse for people to to make an excuse not to face their issues. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense. like it provides a space for ukudonselana, like kuvele kuqatshane omunye umuntu sekaba defensive omunye sekakhuluma udoti, and i-argument has ayilanqubekela phambili, inalento yokuthi sithi masikhuluma people are deflecting from the issues that are in question. Ngithi mangikhuluma nawe, you're arguing with me or you're becoming defensive, or so I think we need to normalize a culture of being able to engage in disagreements. Disagreements are acceptable. For me, personally, disagreements are, we can always have conversations. We can not always gel 100, but when we're having a disagreement, we can always agree to disagree or disagree to agree. I don't know which one works there. You know what I mean? So that way, there's no friction. And what people do not understand about arguments is that they spark a certain level of, or should I say, they spark certain emotions that affect the motion of the, especially with me. I mean, I'm talking about this personally because I've experienced this a number of times. Arguments switch me off, like they just switch. If you want to switch me off, if you want to throw me off, have a heated argument with me. I can't seem to tolerate a woman who is in a fashion of arguing, because arguing sparks tension in relationships. It sparks resentment. It sparks an attitude. It sparks so much. And the sad part is that it does not come with a resolution. After an argument, there's always that need for someone to be right, someone to be wrong, someone to be right. And like I always say, when there's one that needs to be right, then someone needs to be wrong. Or when someone feels the need to win an argument, someone has to lose an argument. And here we're talking about people who are supposed to be getting along, and whoever loses or whoever wins, whatever, there is something that is going to remain unresolved, and it doesn't leave people in the right state. And this always builds up and transcends into even bigger issues. This whole fashion of always being in argumentative relationship. I think people who can relate to it are people who have actually been in long-term relationships or marriages. And then there's tension, and then there's, but let me not just say in marriages or long-term, because I personally, I've also felt this before. So it's those feelings that come from tension, that whole frustration and everything, they build up to something else, and we end up addressing them the wrong way. Right now, because we argued in the morning, or we argued at a certain point in time, and there's something unresolved, and I'm angry about something, it affects maybe our sex life, it affects the way we communicate with each other, it affects how we have been, it just affects our whole engagement. It's like it's like poison has been poured into the system. So I always think this is one thing that people do not actually take into cognizance half the time, but it is what affects relationships. We build up to a point where by the time you can't even identify where you went wrong, but it started on the other end. But wherever you're at now, you can't, it's so mixed up. It's a bowl of emotions that have rolled and rolled and rolled, with events and sequences and pettiness. And so I always tend to disassociate with people who are always in a fashion of wanting to argue, because one thing about argument is that it feels like an attack, or everyone always feels like they're under attack in an argument, and the first instinct that they have is to defend themselves. So it kind of negates the whole idea of someone really listening to the message you are trying to put across. But if we were, in the case that we're having a conversation and it was a disagreement, we can always have that logic exchange. Even if it does get passionate and heated, it's never pushed to a point where it remains with tension. We always find a resolution at the end of the day. And in arguments, don't ever think that someone hears you. People will say the most hurtful of stuff. People will say the craziest of things just in defense of them, even if they're wrong. But when you are in an argument, you attack someone, it's in their nature to defend themselves. Uzovela aqhube umuntu nje akudefende enye into ebheda kuno, but it's all because people are failing to communicate with each other in proper ways. So communication is quite important, guys, and it is the reason why relationships are not working in our society. So let's take cognizance. If you're in a relationship, take time to reflect as to how you relate to people. It plays an important factor, even though it might seem like a small thing. Just take a moment, reflect. Look at how you've talked and communicated to people in the past. Assess your way of communicating. Is it aggressive? Can you have a conversation with someone? Are you always fighting with your partner? It's something you need to look into, because that is where all the problems start. And if the channel of communication is broken somewhere, then some things are bound to clog somewhere and go boom. And people, the same part that people are just speaking vaguely. You're just adding on the statistics. Right? The other reason why umjolo usinyisa is that we've been through a lot, and that is because sijola kakhulu. We are dating too much, guys. People are not taking time to breathe. Like, one moment ula, the next ula, the next moment ula. We all know people like that. We've all had to experience. Like, things are just moving too fast. No one is taking time to. And I would also say this, it all goes back to the whole idea of healing. And people are just going through from partner to partner, hoping and hoping. And it gets to a point where things get blurry and people get lost in all of it. They don't even know why they're doing it anymore. So I think we're in a culture of just dating too much nowadays. People are just, and we're overdoing it to a point where people are broken and their guards are up. And that being said, people are even more selfish. So umjolo usebenza kanjani abantu besezimweni ezikanje ukuthi umuntu you're overdating, your guard is up, and it's always those people who are always coming with conditional love or conditional terms because they are guarded up. Umuntu mayengenzi kanje mina ngeke ngithini. So you have to satisfy certain levels to them for them to actually. And they'll go on and tell you they've never hurt anybody, or they don't acknowledge the fact that they're hurting other people by always being in relationships and not giving their all. When you're guarded, you can't love fully. You've got walls up. You're giving pieces of yourself, but you're not being vulnerable. But at the same time, people are not aware that you getting into relationships guarded up is also hurting someone else on the other end. But you will never know because you're not aware that you're in a relationship with someone who's giving you their all, but you're giving them a piece of yourself. And that is unfair, but you don't know. Now with the health and I don't hurt people, but you're broken too, and you're hurting other people, and you're denying yourself the ability to experience fully. That's why I always, like I said, I was stressing on the healing part. People need to take time to heal. Healing is important, guys. Let us stop engaging in stuff or relationships siney'nkinga ezingaxazululanga. That's why abadala bathi into zabantu abadala lezi, because it's not child's play. It's not child's play. So yeah, there's also those people, and then there's also this thing of love bombing. Love bombing is also a factor. It's actually a thing nowadays. What is love bombing? Let me just go back to the definition. What is love bombing? Love bombing is, what can I say? It's like it's a process, or should I say, it's a stage where someone is doing the most to get you involved in something. Like, or when a girl is trying to convince you to get into something, or maybe like when someone is acting some type of way just to convince you to engage in something. Like, they're doing all these things, like shanga ma gift, but the whole pure intention is for them to get what they want. And it's quite sad that it's always confused for love, especially amantombazana out here that are saying, mina ngifuna out ezongenzela lokho, ubani angenzele lokho, ubani angenzele lokho, ubani angenzele. But they're getting lost in the sense that it's not really love. Someone is just doing stuff because they have an intent to achieve. So that's why they call it love bombing. Like, ufike nje entombini, wenze, do the most. And then when you have your way, you leave. So that's where you realize that some people need to understand what they're doing, and they need to understand the dynamics that work in relationships. So there's this love bombing culture, and it's usually done by amaplesa or people who are well off when they want to have their way with someone. And it's also playing to the detriment of relationships in general. And some people really perceive that as love. Right now, what you see Oshelin Tombazana, she will feel like maybe you're not really into her or something, because there's a culture of love bombing. People are doing the most just to get, or people are, so expectations again. Last but not least, the one that is playing to our detriment is the one where women have been made to believe that men are animals. It's like it's been inflated to a point where women are just afraid to get hurt. Women are so cynical to a point where they have lost all hope in love. And it's not as bad as how society has expressed it, but there's just so much of this message. And I have to say, it's society, and there's all these movements. And trust me, nowadays you meet more of these people that push this message than ever. Like, men are trash, men are this, men are dogs, men. So men are not, women are not really feeling very positive about umjolo nowadays because of this whole movement. It's not as bad as, yes, I do understand that people have gone through trauma, people have gone through certain things, but I think it's being exacerbated to a point where it sucks out the air of everything. Like, women are just not optimistic about love at this point. They just don't even believe they'll ever find it. So right now, the ones that are even in relationships are just trying to make it work. Yeah, so they're not really giving their all because they're afraid to get hurt. Because you treat her very well, you treat her very nice. You take her out for dates, you keep right, you do the chivalry, you splash her with gifts, you understand her, and she will not understand how. And most of the time, you find yourself in a situation where you're with a woman who's struggling to understand, or who's struggling with herself, in the sense that you treating her that way is bringing down her guard, and she feels like she's losing herself. I'm sure some guys have heard this thing in which a woman says, I'm losing myself, or I don't understand what's going on. I don't believe that is this good. And this tends to trigger the whole idea of sabotage. Some women have sabotage relationships. Personally, I've had to experience it. Like, you just treat someone very well, you get the and along the way they feel like they're losing themselves. But it's because broken people, right? Like I've said, broken people. People are broken, guys. They can't even embrace a good guy when they meet them. They just feel like something will go wrong, and they're not comfortable, because what makes them uncomfortable is that them being vulnerable to you means that you have the power to hurt them more than anyone else, or you've got the power to damage them. So, in which they've been moving around with their guard up. So it always feels safer to be in a toxic guy's where she just dates a guy who's beneath her. She knows that guy is full of shit. So there's no surprise there. You find women just saying, ngiyazi mina vele ukuthi ubani uyini, amadoda. They found comfort in that zone. So it's kind of hard now for us to move. And this is why I always say, at this point in time, as much as women have sucked out the air, I think with this whole cynicism, men are in a better position. That's why I was told you, a guy may have his heart broken and go on a wild goose chase, whole phase and whatever. But in his heart of hearts, he has hope that there is a good woman out there. And when he meets one, he will act right. He goes to tell you, gentleman, because he fell in the hands of the right woman, or should I say, the right woman fell in his hands, and because he has always believed there is a good woman out there. And this is because the message of cynicism is not being pushed across many years. There are some women who do bad things. But we've all been through stuff, but we act out sometimes, but we all have that room to do a 360 and know that there is that one girl who I'm going to meet, who I'm going to meet out there, who's going to be good to me, who's going to be nice, who's going to have genuine intention. So, but it's not the same with women. So, right now, all I can say is I can just encourage people to take a moment just to reflect on themselves, take time to heal, guys. Take time to uh, move with intent, be intentional about all the things you do, especially in dating. Normalize safe spaces, normalize moving healthy, avoid unhealthy people. Just just be cautious, just be aware of your surrounding. And this will be all for today, guys. Ayona ndlela ubuzwile bafethu ayinami sengiyidalo ngayifixa lapho engifika khona. I hope you found the video very useful and enlightening, and it will help you make the best decision moving forward from here. And yeah, I'm signing out, guys. This is your boy Mel, and I'll keep more content coming. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and take good care of yourself. Peace, guys.